What is going on, everyone? I'm Shadell. Welcome back to Rap Talk. And today I want to talk about Akademiks essentially putting on blast Kendrick Lamar, Drake, J. Cole, essentially saying that they're snubbing the culture, snubbing the media as far as, not going on Drink Champs, $1 million worth of game with Wallow and Gilly, essentially not supporting any of these podcasts or these platforms that these artists have been on in the past or new platforms that they haven't been on that fans like me, and I'm sure you watching, would love to see them on. Now, I liked where Akademiks was going with this. I want to add a little bit more, essentially, of my take on what he's saying and kind of how I feel like as a fan, what we would want to see from Drake, J. Cole, future artists, not even about the top three here, but I would love to see this from The Weeknd. So let's get into it. So I'm going to start off by saying that I love that, hey, we just got an interview, I believe 6 months ago, maybe a little bit more, where Drake was sitting down with Elliot and B-Dot. It was a great interview. That was dope. And we just got one a month or two ago with him and Lil Yachty. So that's cool. All right, at least they're doing interviews with notable people that we'd like to hear and pick at Drake's brain and get his views and thoughts on different things and just kind of give that chill Drake vibe and just hear his views. We hear this guy's music, we would love to hear more about what Drake has to say on certain things, or just what a day in Drake's life is. That would be interesting. So I gotta say, hey, I have less heat for Drake because we've been kind of getting some of these interviews. Granted, yeah, it'd be dope seeing him giving more of a breakdown and going on $1 million worth of game, or maybe Drake and Joe Budden chopping it up. That'd be an interesting interview that I'd love to see. And it sucks because as Akademiks is saying this, I've been thinking about this for years now, where The Weeknd, in my opinion, has been dropping great albums. I've really been liking the albums he's been doing, Starboy and Up. I've been really feeling, of course, his past work, but most recently, those last couple albums he's dropped, I'm really digging it in the sound. I would love for The Weeknd to go on a more of a deep dive on certain parts of certain songs, or the process for a certain song or an album or things like that. But The Weeknd, we haven't gotten an interview from him in the last 6 years, getting close to 10 years at this point. And it's I get it. You don't want to go to all these places like The Breakfast Club, Big Boy, Sway, whatever, and chop it up and get the same questions from each platform, and it gets boring and dull. I'm going to say this. As a fan that is growing up on watching these artists and listening to their music on the day-to-day basis, and living with that music that they're putting out and consuming it, I love these interviews. Now, I'm going to say this. For the last 20 years, I've been a hardcore 50 fan. Literally any and every interview that 50 has dropped in his career, I have watched probably. I love that 50 still goes. We probably get a 50 Cent interview, if not once a year, probably once every other year, where he goes on Power 105 and Hot 97 and just chops it up with them. He just did one with Big Boy, I believe, a few months ago. I love these because here you go, 50, sitting here growing, going to different avenues of creating projects, and now creating movies at one portion of his life, now creating TV shows and producing that and making all these deals and just having a crazy network of just working with different companies, Viacom, iHeartRadio, just a ton of platforms that 50 has worked with. And I love hearing his point of view. Most recently, where he kind of took a stab at Banks, where essentially saying how depression is a luxury. He just was on Mary J. Blige's new platform on BET, Wind Down with Mary J. It was a dope interview. Granted, there's softball questions, but me being a fan at 50 and just watching anything that he wants to interview or chop it up with, it was dope to see Mary J. and 50 just chill, have some wine, just chat it up. Just being a fan of these people that you listen to on the daily, it's really nice as a fan to sit here and watch what their train of thought is, how they think, how they feel, and just understand them more, because you're already listening to their music. You're hearing their words. It'd be nice to get a little bit more insight, if you get what I'm saying. Which leads me to Kendrick. Now, Kendrick, when he dropped his album, he did something where he went to Ghana and did something with Spotify. It was a little interview, and that's cool and all. But, he hasn't done a Breakfast Club interview, I don't believe, in the last 5 or 6 years. Kendrick, go on something. Oh man, I was, from the beginning pretty much, since Section 80, I've been a hardcore or overly dedicated. I've been a Kendrick fan since those times. I'm sure people have been Kendrick fans for a lot later when they hear the Kendrick Lamar EP. I hear all that. But essentially, I've been a Kendrick fan for a long time. So I used to love when he did interviews and chops it up with people. I would love to see Kendrick and Big Boy, like Kendrick go on Breakfast Club. I would love to see these artists go on different platforms because they all share different things. Yeah, you may get the few different questions from them and kind of picking at certain things that you may not want to share. Like I would love to know more about Kendrick's infidelity. Talked about it a lot on his last album. I'd love to know more about those details. Like, come on. Like it's things that like I'm not a huge fan of in this new age, and I get it. You can kind of curate your own media, you have your own Instagram, you have all this stuff. But a lot of these people, like your Drake, your J. Cole, your Kendricks, your Weekends, they're not really posting that much. They black out their social media when a project comes, so their stuff isn't there any longer. It's very controlled, and I get it. You do that for PR purposes, it makes sense, all that stuff. But as a fan that like really likes these artists, it really disconnects you. It pretty much brings you back to the early stages before we had the internet, where the rappers and pretty much anyone that created music had a certain mystique about them. Now it kind of creates that mystique by, hey, just dropping music and not doing any interviews because I've hit that peak. I don't need to do these anymore. I have my fan base. They rock with me regardless if I do interviews or not. And I get it. I understand it, but I strongly doubt Drake, Kendrick, anyone is really watching this that would care about, one random fan. But if they were, I would have to say, do at least an interview with someone, Angie Martinez, anyone, just once a year. It's so dope and refreshing. Having Drake sit down with Lil Yachty was cool. Not something I would have put together and been like, hey, these guys should chop it up and talk and record it. But it was a real good and fun interview that I liked watching, and I'm sure a lot of us liked watching. I'd like more things like that. To bring it back to The Weeknd, because I still got a bone to pick with The Weeknd here, I would love to know more about his change in sound. Like, The Weeknd has had this dramatic change of sound in a lot of his projects. It's kind of similar to Kanye, where like each project sounds different. I really like this. I would love for The Weeknd to talk more about this, talk more about his situation with I'm probably gonna kill the name, but Bella Hadid, I believe is the name. I'm probably gonna kill that. But I'd love to like talk more about this, or how the feature with Kendrick and The Weeknd happened with Sidewalks on Starboy. If you don't want to talk about all the messy gossip things, sure, I understand that. That's cool. But let's talk about the album. Like, Kendrick's album, still playing to this day. I would love for this guy to chop it up and talk like track by track, on his thoughts on these albums, or on these songs on the album that we're getting. Like, I love Father Time. I love A Mother Sober. There's so many songs that I would love to know more details as to why he made it, his thoughts on it. The song where he's going back and forth, I'm drawing a blank on this girl's name. I'll put it here if I can remember to. Where he's going back and forth, and it's a whole bunch of swearing, and my wife is like, yo, this song is like too much for me. Can't play it around me. Totally makes sense. There's a lot of swearing, a lot of toxic stuff. If you've been in the house environment, you understand where your parents are sitting there fighting, going off. You're like, I can't listen to it. It's too much. I'd like to know how that song came about, why he thought about doing it, things like that. And I feel like that's the one part that Akademiks should be touching on a little bit more. And that's why I'm sharing my view on it, is that, hey, we need these artists that we really like to go on these platforms. And it's not necessarily to help those platforms. You don't go on Drink Champs just to, if you don't want to drink, don't drink. But just to have you like on these platforms and get more content from you outside of these album drops that we get, 2 or 3 times a year, 5 years, and Kendrick's most recent there. It'd be nice to get an interview in between that time frame. Give me an hour interview out of the 3, 4, 5 years that you've been absent. That'd be dope. Those are just my thoughts. I guess my thoughts as an aggravated fan. Yeah, I would love to know everyone else's thoughts as far as, do you agree? Do you feel like, nah, these artists, these rappers, they don't have to do these interviews. When they drop, that's it. They don't have to go on Power 105, Sway, Big Boy, Hot 97, Joe Budden, No Jumper, I guess you could put in that list, Vlad. Oh, that's the last thing. I would love to get a Vlad interview with 50 Cent. And I know Vlad would love that, but I just feel like the details that Vlad would go through, it would be amazing. And you would only get that from a Vlad interview, starting from the bottom and then just detailing it, and hopefully 50 answers. Probably not. But I would love that. Again, just my thoughts and opinions. Feel free to drop yours down below in the comment section. With that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.